This is my predatory ant colony. It's hard to believe that everything started with a tiny colony like this. But in just 30 days, they transformed into something entirely different. For an entire month, I documented every moment of their lives, from intense hunting expeditions and the construction of their underground nest to expanding their territory, raising their brood, searching for food, and surviving each day. But I didn't stop at simply watching them. To find out how resilient they truly were, I introduced dangerous predators into their habitat, recreating the kinds of challenges an ant colony might face in the wild. Would they stand together and fight back? Would they find a way to escape? Or would the entire colony collapse? To understand how this incredible journey began, we have to return to day one, when my entire ant colony lived inside a single tiny box. They looked insignificant, almost too small to notice. But hidden beneath those tiny bodies was an extraordinary strength that would soon leave me completely amazed. But was that really true? There was only one way to find out. I decided to introduce a live cricket directly into the heart of the colony's territory. Within seconds, it was as if an invisible alarm had been triggered. The peaceful nest instantly transformed into a battlefield. Worker ants poured out from every direction, surrounding the intruder with astonishing speed. There was no panic, no confusion. Every single ant seemed to know exactly what its role was. The hunt had begun. But the real question was, would the cricket somehow escape this tiny army? Or was it about to become the colony's next meal? As some of the worker ants rushed in, locking their powerful jaws onto the cricket like living steel traps, they were doing everything they could to protect their queen and vulnerable brood from this mysterious intruder. But the most terrifying part of the attack was yet to come. The moment the prey was completely restrained, these tiny warriors curled their abdomens forward, revealing a deadly weapon hidden in plain sight. In a split second, razor-sharp stingers pierced the cricket's body, injecting a potent venom that quickly overwhelmed its defenses. With every sting, the cricket grew weaker, until all resistance faded away. This wasn't just an attack. It was a perfectly coordinated execution, carried out with astonishing precision by one of nature's most formidable armies. But then I realized something. This tiny cup had become far too small for the colony. Not only were they multiplying at an incredible rate, but they had also begun searching relentlessly for a way to escape, as if they were driven by an instinct to claim new territory. That's when I knew it was finally time to give this growing empire a much larger kingdom. But this is only the beginning. It's time to assemble every piece of this project and transform it into a complete fortress, a miniature world that this ant colony will soon call home. If everything goes according to plan, this place will become the center of a tiny civilization where generations of ants can reproduce, grow, and fight for survival. But will the colony accept this new home, or will something completely unexpected happen? There's only one way to find out: by putting it to the test. This wasn't going to be just another artificial ant nest. It was about to become the new kingdom of an entire ant empire. But before they could settle in, I had to build a hidden passage connecting two different worlds. Using nothing more than a few plastic tubes, the migration route was finally complete. Look! The very first scout ant has entered the tube, slowly making its way into a completely unfamiliar land. Its journey to explore the new nest has begun. But will it discover a paradise or a hidden danger waiting in the darkness? The pioneering scout was still carefully exploring every inch of the strange new territory. But before it could make its way back to the colony with its discovery, shadows began to appear behind it. One after another, more ants quietly crossed the border, following the scout's scent trail. What had begun as a solitary expedition was now transforming into the opening move of a mysterious advance. Take a close look at their abdomens. Do you notice anything unusual? They're constantly swaying back and forth inside the narrow tunnel, almost as if they're transmitting a secret message. Could this be an emergency signal being sent to the ants waiting on the other side? In the world of ants, even the smallest movement can determine the fate of an entire colony. Finally, there it is! The very first ant has begun carrying one of the colony's precious larvae toward their new nest. What immediately caught my attention was how much larger the cocoon was compared to the tiny body of the ant carrying it. Moments later, another larva is carefully transported to the new nest as well. Even though the cocoon appears much bigger than the ant itself, it doesn't hesitate for a second. Clamping the cocoon tightly in its mandibles, it pushes forward with unwavering determination, as if it knows this mission is more important than anything else. And by the end of that day, the entire ant colony had safely relocated to their new home. I decided to leave them alone for a few days, giving them time to settle in and become familiar with their new nest. More than a week had passed, and I was starting to get bored watching the ants live inside such a tiny nest. If I really wanted to discover what they were capable of, I had to push them beyond their comfort zone. So, I decided to build them a more realistic world. A harsh desert, where prey was plentiful, but deadly predators were always waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Could the colony survive and conquer this unforgiving land? Everything began with a solid layer of soil, forming the foundation of the world I was about to create. Then, little by little, I spread a layer of golden sand across the surface, transforming the entire enclosure into a vast desert. Finally, I began placing weathered rocks, dried pieces of wood, and towering cacti inside. One by one, these simple elements transformed the empty glass enclosure into a harsh desert landscape, a place where every living creature would have to fight to survive and adapt. Next, I connected the ant colony to a harsh desert using a transparent tube, allowing us to watch the first scout ants venture into the unknown. Would they bravely explore this unforgiving new world or retreat in the face of the challenges ahead? The moment the entrance was open, a brave scout ant immediately ventured into a land no member of the colony had ever set foot in before. Every step it took was slow and cautious, as if it were reading invisible signals carried through the air. But then, after only a few seconds, it suddenly froze. Without a moment's hesitation, the tiny explorer turned around and hurried back. It seemed that something dangerous was waiting just ahead. At last, the moment had come. A fearless scout ant ventured into the desert, beginning its journey through a land filled with mystery and the unknown. The little ant strolled across the desert sand, seemingly delighted to finally leave its cramped nest behind. But just ahead, an unknown secret was waiting to be discovered. To lure the colony deeper into the mysterious desert, I decided to offer them a reward they simply couldn't resist. Plump mealworms, a protein-rich feast beloved by the entire colony. I have to admit, these worms were exactly what lured the ant colony into the desert. At first, it looked like the perfect feeding ground. But then, one brave scout ventured too far into the endless sea of sand. What it didn't realize was that beneath the seemingly harmless surface, something deadly was lying in wait, ready to strike at any moment. Something suddenly burst out from beneath the sand and attacked the ant, and the poor ant never had a chance to fight back. But the terrifying part is, this wasn't an accident. Just a few minutes earlier, I had secretly released several ant lions into this desert. They don't hunt like ordinary predators. Instead, they quietly dig cone-shaped pit traps in the sand, bury themselves at the bottom, and patiently wait. And all it takes is one unlucky ant wandering a little too close to the edge, and its fate is almost certainly sealed. Just as I had predicted, the inevitable finally happened. One unlucky ant wandered a little too close to the deadly sand pit. In the blink of an eye, from beneath the seemingly harmless sand, a massive pair of jaws shot upward like a hidden trap springing to life. The ant lion's powerful jaws clamped tightly around the ant's abdomen. The helpless victim struggled desperately, trying to cling to the loose grains of sand in a final attempt to escape. But every time it fought its way upward, the collapsing sand dragged it right back toward the predator waiting below. Hidden beneath the surface, the antlion remained perfectly still, tightening its grip before slowly pulling its prey deeper and deeper underground, as if the earth itself was swallowing the ant alive. And the ending? I think we all know how this story ends. But perhaps the most terrifying question isn't what happened to this ant, it's how many more deadly traps like this are silently waiting for their next unsuspecting victim. After a long period of abundant food, the queen began laying more and more eggs. Before long, the colony had grown beyond its limits, and the once spacious nest had become dangerously overcrowded. And just like that, the 30-day challenge has come to an end. From a tiny colony, they built a thriving empire. Although some ants fell along the way, the survivors endured, adapted, and continued to grow until the very last day. But this is only the beginning. What lies ahead for this growing empire? If you'd like to join me in uncovering the next chapter, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next adventure.